It took me over 5 million coins to completely max out 3 vehicles and complete 50 levels across 5 different maps in Hill Climb Racing Lite. This run starts with the hill climber on the highway, and the plan is to reach level 10 on every single map, but this vehicle isn't nearly strong enough to do that yet. I have to travel 600 meters to reach level 1, which isn't really difficult. Completing levels is also really important for getting coins. As you can see here, I got 17,500 coins, and now I need to go another 300 meters to get to level 2. Then something weird happened. I narrowly reached the next fuel, and only a few frames later I died. I guess the collection wasn't registered before the game chose for me to die. Anyway, I now had 40,000 coins to my name, which I used to auto upgrade the hill climber. This evenly disperses your coins throughout the 4 upgrades. It sort of just takes the thinking out of it. I then went back into highway and was able to collect the same fuel with plenty of time to spare, so I got a new record and completed level 2, getting me 25,000 more coins. But soon after, I was low fuel and didn't make it much further. Instead of heading back to the garage, I went to the stages and unlocked Countryside for 35,000 coins. This map is a bit different from Highway. Of course, it looks quite different, but the distance between the levels is much smaller, and as you can see, I completed the first one in the first 200 meters, and each level after that is 200 meters further. Even though Countryside is a lot harder to drive in because of the rough terrain, I made it to level 2 pretty easily, but flipped about 100 meters later. Pretty soon, I wanted to unlock the monster truck, because it seemed like a more stable vehicle that would drive a lot better. But for now, I spent my coins on unlocking Desert. This map's levels are also spaced out by 200 meters, so each one is pretty quick, but you get fewer coins per level. I definitely didn't die on my first attempt, but I did better on my second, and even though the terrain is kind of rough like Countryside, I managed to complete levels 1, 2, and 3, which got me almost 40,000 coins combined. I had my first neck flip, and with 89k, my next purchase was going to be the monster truck. So I went into one more highway run and actually got past my record and collected the fuel, but somehow I still died. After raging slightly, I bought the monster truck and used my remaining 36k to auto upgrade the vehicle. My hill climber still had slightly better upgrades, so I first collected more coins in Countryside, then Highway, and then made more upgrades to the monster truck. I got through level 3 on the highway, and the coins were really starting to add up, but I got stuck halfway up this massive hill. I made more upgrades to the monster truck and went into Countryside, and this map felt so much easier now. I guess the large wheels or just the balance with this car made it a lot easier to drive. Getting to level 5 now was pretty easy, and that meant I was halfway finished with Countryside's level requirement. There were only 2 stages left to unlock, and because Seasons was more expensive, I did that one first. I don't know if this was meant to happen, but it felt so much slower driving on this map compared to any of the others, and I figured that would only be the case on the winter map, but I guess not. Regardless, I made it past the first and second checkpoints, but had my first run-in with some water. I didn't realize it at the time, but this game makes it kind of impossible to drive through water, and you want to avoid it as much as possible. I slowly made my way through the next level, and that's when I get caught in this water. More than half of my fuel was drained before I could get out, and I narrowly refilled just after entering the next season. Just after that, you have to go on top of this platform, which I didn't do, so I was sent back to the lobby. It had been almost 30 minutes when I unlocked this last map, Arctic. Here, the group felt so much worse compared to other maps, but it was still somewhat manageable. I got through 4 levels, but because of the lack of grip, I couldn't get any further. I did more auto upgrades and headed back to Highway. I got up the huge hill that I was having problems with before, and I completed level 5. This was the second map I was now halfway done with. Even though I got 40,000 coins, the price of upgrades was getting to be quite high as well. As I kept making upgrades, I was able to improve on each of the maps. Like for Desert, even though the hills were getting super steep, I managed to get 1400 meters, which is level 7. I improved Arctic, but got stopped at another big hill, then went back to Seasons, where I now knew to skip the water pit by going on top of the platform. I somehow got up this huge hill despite how slow I was going, and then thought I would die, but out of nowhere, this moving platform saved me, letting me pass level 6 and finally reaching the winter portion of the map. This part is almost better than the others because the water pits are frozen over, but I died anyway, and for the first time in this run, I did something different. I doubled my coins by watching an ad. I now had 227,000 coins, and I looked at upgrading other vehicles, but decided to spend everything on the monster truck. Watching that one ad opened the door for me to watch more, and that's exactly what I did to max out the monster truck, and it was completely worth it. I was about to realize that this vehicle would totally transform after these upgrades. So in just under 1 hour, I'd completely maxed out my first vehicle. I made a few upgrades to the hill climber's engine, and then I was ready to file for bankruptcy. I queued up Countryside, and the difference was insane. The monster truck was so much faster and easier to control. Since I was moving so much quicker, I was getting a lot more airtime, which also meant a lot more coins. But something else changed that I didn't expect at all. If you've ever used the Moonlander in Hill Climb Racing 2, you probably know that when you climb a hill, the center of the vehicle shifts downwards, making the climb a lot easier. It wasn't exactly the same, but it kind of seemed like this was happening with the monster truck. I was also able to break my record super easily, and all of the random terrain became very manageable. There were times that I came close to dying, but the vehicle was now so overpowered that I was able to simply adjust itself to prevent the flipping. I'd hit the 1 hour mark and just completed the 9th level, and a few hills later finished the 10th as well. So now I was 1 map down with 4 left to go. I again doubled my reward, and even though I planned to use the monster truck the rest of the time, I still had lots of upgrades left on the hill climber, and I hadn't even unlocked the motocross, which was the next thing that I did. I used all my coins to auto upgrade, getting it about halfway there, and I then moved on to desert. I assumed that with how smoothly countryside went, desert would basically be the same difficulty. I made it to my record of 1400 and finished level 8, getting over 40,000 coins, and I just as easily passed level 9 and 10. I somehow didn't die here, and I made it to the 11th checkpoint. I figured I should just keep going because I would need more coins anyway, and the checkpoints were giving more and more money. I narrowly passed what was probably the biggest hill I'd encountered so far, but I get stuck a little bit after. This run got me up to 750,000 coins, which of course I had to double, and I auto upgraded the motocross again. Going back into highway, I knew getting to the 10th level wouldn't be like countryside and desert. Remember, this map is different than all the others because the checkpoints are spaced further apart, and I'd already had some trouble with the earlier ones. Getting to level 6 required me to get past the 2,000 meter mark, but for all the other maps, reaching 2,000 meters would get me to level 10. So progress on highway is quite different. I passed level 7, and the rewards were really starting to pick up. Just after that, I missed a fuel and had to go back again, but then died. For the first time in this run, I used the forbidden respawn, and the vehicle got really messed up from it. It got me past the next level, but for the remainder of the run, the back wheel seemed to move around too much when hitting the ground. Like it would go through the back of the vehicle sort of. There were some big hills that weren't too difficult to pass, and I got to level 10, but not much further. I didn't spend my winnings just yet and went into Arctic. I think this was the first time I skipped a fuel and kept going, but it was fine because another one spawned sort of right after. Compared to earlier, the grip didn't feel so bad, and I had another near death, but managed to clutch. Level 10 was placed in a sort of awkward way, but that didn't affect the difficulty of completing it. Back in the menu, I had over 3 million coins, the most I'd had so far, and it was more than enough to max out the motocross, which meant I only had the hill climber left to upgrade. With 1.2 million still in the bank, I went into what would hopefully be my last run. I got stuck in a water pit pretty early on, but I didn't die. I remembered to go over the platform in autumn, but I didn't do so well on the next platform, so I was back to using the forbidden respawn. I broke my record in the winter portion, which got me past checkpoint 7, but I also broke my neck. Twice. I didn't have any respawns left, so I actually had to drive carefully now. Somehow, this water pit let me drive normally through it, which was nice, and I collected one more fuel before getting the last checkpoint that I needed. For a time check, I'm about an hour and a half in. So yeah, this was quite a sloppy run, but I guess it still counts. Going back into the garage, I upgraded the hill climber and just had one tire upgrade left to do. I gave it a test run in highway, and it was so much faster. I realized that I still hadn't used motocross, so I also tested it out on the highway. I don't actually know if the vehicles are all supposed to be the same speed when they're maxed out, but I think using monster truck was a good decision because it seemed the easiest to control overall. And then I finally had enough to max out the hill climber. So there it is, all 3 vehicles completely maxed out, all maps unlocked, and level 10 completed on each one. That's about it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and thanks so much for watching. Bye.